People, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning back in. I know it's a bit of a different background. Obviously, I always tell you that I'm trying to learn new skills, and obviously in a couple of videos from now, you're going to just see a green screen. You're not going to see nothing behind it. Pure reason for that being, trying to learn how to use a green screen while I'm making videos. I might as well shoot this on the backdrop, so by the time I upload this, I can mess around on Adobe and eventually have this finished product closer to a level I want. But that's why. Now, obviously on Wednesday, it's Arsenal versus Manchester City, Manchester City versus Arsenal. Do I need to tell you lot what that means? We know it's a big game. Obviously, it's not a big game in terms of title deciding, you know, maybe Champions League spots. I mean, I don't believe we can get top 4 or 5th, but as long as we're still in the race and as long as we've still got some sort of objective to work towards until May, then we need to do that and give it our most attention and our highest effort sort of thing. Obviously beating Manchester City following a 1-0 victory over West Ham and getting 3 points would be a big 3 points for us, not just for morale. I mean, when was the last time we won at the Etihad? Probably 2015. When was the last time we actually won away from home in the top 6? Can't tell you off the top of my head too many times we've done that in the league. So it'll be big credentials. Obviously for Arteta, he returns, I don't want to say home, but he returns to the club that gave him a chance as a coach in some capacity against a friend and now rival in Pep Guardiola. Pep probably knows everything about him. He knows everything about Pep. How much of that is going to go into their preparation, I don't know. Because I say Manchester City is an open book. Not an open book in that they're predictable. You know what you're going to get. First and foremost, you're going against world to top class footballers. Whatever sort of combination they put out there, especially the wide areas, you know. So you're going against quality players who any lapse in concentration can pick you apart in a second. Concentration is key in this game. You switch off for 30 seconds, they will score, especially at fullback. That specifically goes out to Saka and Socrates if they play. Do not, if the ball's on the right hand, well, the ball's on their left, so you're not really, well, their right, well, no, their right would be down your side. If the ball's on their left, do not switch off, because you see them switch play a lot. Same goes on the other side. If the ball's on the left-hand side and Saka's facing a threat, right backs do not switch off. Wingers or strikers, wide men, make sure you follow your runners. Midfield battle is key. Off the ball is key. You look at City's movement, they make specific movements to draw you out of position. So how we hold our position is key. How we follow their midfield runners. How switched on are we, people? So we already know. You already know they're going to double up against you in wide areas and create 2v1 situations. We know off the back of that, when your attention is diverted to trying to solve these areas, there'll be runs off the ball where they'll exploit you. So we know what we're going against City. Obviously, we've started very slowly in our last couple of games now in the league and all comps. Big reason as to why we went out in Olympiacos. If you look at the first leg, we need to start better. Some of the chances we presented to Halle and in particular Mikel Antonio against West Ham, Manchester City will finish that and we will find ourselves 3-0 down at half time. So how we, both transitions, both the defensive transition and the offensive transition needs to be spot on. I'm not using the tactics board to illustrate any of these things because you lot know this, the players know this, and it's there with an open book, really and truly. Obviously, if you watched Super Sunday yesterday, you watched the Manchester derby. Credit to United because I think their game plan was spot on. But they gave you again. City are gonna want to take they're playing at home. It's going to be different conditions. City are going to want to take their anger out on us. But I think Manchester United gave some sort of blueprint. Obviously there was a bit of fortune at times, but they remained rigid. They defended in numbers. They counter-attacked when they needed to be. Crucially, game management. They realised that City are not going to pose as much of a threat in this particular game than they expected. They quickly changed it up, installed some sort of confidence, and there was a 5-minute passage. Man United had around 80% possession, and I believe not too long after that, it weren't a free kick, but they earned a free kick. Obviously, you saw something they worked on the training ground with Bruno Fernandes, and Martial. Touch of fortune from Edison because he let himself down for both of the goals, but they scored, people. So if you need to remember, for all the things I'm saying in relation to marking, concentration, following runners, we cannot over-respect City. You need to have a goal. We need to be very strategic obviously when we go forward, but we need to go forward and have efforts and test them. You saw Otamendi, there's issues. You saw Zinchenko, he's very good at left back, but at times he shows he's not an out-and-out left back. Cancelo, if he plays, what can you get at him? I think he'll go with Walker at right back, just because if Aubameyang plays on the left, you know, there's the pace there. And that's a difficult one, because do you put Aubameyang through the middle? Do you put Martinelli on the left, who's got a good relationship with Saka? But then again, it is two naive teenagers, really, in many aspects. Away at the Etihad, it's a difficult one. Right back, obviously, do you go with Socrates, Maitland-Niles? Do you go with him, which he probably won't be? Bellerin's form's been poor. Do you go with him? Suarez is back in training. Do you go with him? Obviously, there's the Kieran Tierney debate. Does he play against City? I personally think that's the toughest decision, because I would give it to Saka, but you can see Saka needs a rest. He looks extremely tired, and surely Brighton away, Saka, I don't want to say will play no part, but will be dropped. Obviously, if you play Tierney and he plays a blinder, everybody shuts up. But if he gets in there and evidently looks off the pace because he ain't played in a minute, what can we say? So there's a difficult decisions to make, man. For Arsenal, obviously, if we want top four, we need to get something out of this game, whether it's a point or 3. You need to get a point. We've got Brighton away to come as well. So it's now, what more can I say other than we need to win games? The crazy thing is, I think City have lost more games in the Premier League than us this season. Obviously, we're on a bit of an unbeaten run in the league as well, if you want to draw positives from that. We need to also be switched on at set pieces. And one thing I want to see is, it's not going to be like United. We probably will concede. We probably will have to outscore the opposition, simply put. What I want to see is, if we do concede, it happens. Don't creep into a shell, because City will exploit you. If you concede a goal, you feel sorry for ourselves, we will end up leaving that field down 3 or 4 goals. I want to see reactions. I want to see concentration. I want to see people being proactive. If it's not the game we expect City to come here and pros, have more of an effort. If you see City are troubling us more than you expect, and it's not necessarily your role, muck in. This is not a game for individual performances. This is a team game for the collective. Obviously, if everybody holds themselves accountable and holds themselves to high standards and wins their individual battle, collectively it makes us look good. But this is firmly one where we have to leave, win, lose or draw, actually, because if I had to bet money, I'd say we'd lose. By God's grace, it's not the case. But we need to leave that field with some credibility. Arteta needs to be able to look around on that coach with the players that played and say, okay, cool, there's some reliability. At worst, let's not go out there and lose 2, 3, 4-0 and all them silly cricket scores Arsenal have been accustomed to at times. City are going to want revenge. They lost to Manchester United. Obviously, they lost to North London rivals Spurs. I'm sure they don't want to lose. I'm sure they don't want to lose that game against another North London team. So we're going to fully have to deal with City being hurt, wanting revenge, and wanting to take their frustrations out. We shouldn't lie down on our backs. Let's go and fight this thing head on. Let's not over-respect this City team. At the end of the day, it's a game of football. There's been games you've seen teams take City to the wire, not get anything out, seen City draw, and obviously seen City lose. And I think the best example is actually Newcastle. Newcastle's draw, forgive me if I'm wrong, against Man City. For me, that was commitment, that was a game plan, that is everything I want to say everything I want to see, but everything I want to see from the side, more or less, people. Obviously, I believe we're on 43 points level with Wolves at this moment in time. If you beat Manchester City, it does good for your credentials. Considering Spurs drop points, considering Manchester United won, Wolves drop points as well. There's been different results in relation to the other teams trying to get top 4 like us. We need to get a result, and they're all watching this game closely, beyond the obvious reason to want to watch this game. In relation, obviously we did well to get the insurance against West Ham, regardless of what we have to say about that. I guess the only thing is the lineup, really and truly, people. For me, I would go with Leno. Bellerin would get the nod because Maitland-Niles isn't going to feature. I'd play Maitland-Niles because I don't think Bellerin's form's been there, but I do believe it's just a toss-up between Socrates and Bellerin. Socrates puts in a shift and he tries his best, but when you look at the threats potentially from wide areas, not just with their wingers, but also with their fullbacks, and also if Kevin De Bruyne is fit or if Bernardo plays, and these central mids that look to drift to the flanks and try and create goal-scoring opportunities, creatively, we need someone with a bit of pace, someone that's a natural right back to kind of deal with that. I know Bellerin's kind of lost a yard and he does struggle, but he's got more of the tools equipped to deal potentially with the issue than potentially Socrates can. So for me, I'm going with Leno in goal. He picks himself. I'm going with Bellerin at right back. Centre half's a tough one, because do you continue the relationship with David Luiz and Marie that we've seen against Portsmouth and West Ham? If Mustafi's fit, on form, he's been one of the better players. Socrates, when comes in, has done okay. So there's some problems. For me, I'm probably going to lean towards more Mustafi and David Luiz. You could go with Marie, he's a bit more conservative and things. But I think Mustafi's form, he deserves to start. So yeah, I'm kind of looking to Mustafi. But I must admit, Mustafi and Marie is the hardest one, because Marie's only played a couple of times, literally first team, but he's barely put a foot wrong. And I like his conservative approach. We might need that. I do think he has an issue with pace and athleticism. I'm not saying Mustafi is the best in terms of the recovery, but just based on what I saw of Mikel Antonio being pulled into the channels, I'm not too sure if Marie's got the credentials to do well in this game. And obviously, if he starts, I believe in him. I want him to do well. And Mustafi's not exactly better than him, but I just think Mustafi's form edges it. So I'm going to go with Mustafi and David Luiz, but I wouldn't mind if Marie plays. So Mustafi, David Luiz, Bellerin. Left back, I'm gonna have to go with Saka, man. I'm gonna have to go with Saka. I'm gonna have to, and it's a big game for both fullbacks. It's a big game for Saka. And as much as I like Saka, I'm really looking at how well he defends as a fullback. Because if we're honest, the bulk of his performances at fullback, he mashes work defensively, but the highlights would probably be assists and getting forward. I'm looking to our fullbacks today. I know he's a young man, he's not a natural left back, but he's gonna have to be switched on. David Luiz talks to him quite a lot in the game. They're gonna have to do that. Xhaka is going to have to protect him on that left hand side, as well as potentially Aubameyang people. So it's a tough one. So yeah, like I've said, I've said the back five: Leno, Bellerin, Mustafi, Luiz, Saka. Midfield picks itself in Granit Xhaka. I said Saka at left back. Sorry, Granit Xhaka, and Dani Ceballos will go into midfield for me. Ozil will play in the 10 role for me, because I think that's what's likely to happen. Up front is where it's the most debatable one, because I'm very vocal on Aubameyang playing through the middle, but I must admit, games like this is where I kind of advocate, not necessarily to play him on the flanks, but I can see the logic behind it, because Martinelli could do it as well. But I mean, if you stick, obviously you want Aubameyang in the central areas where he can score goals, even though he does it anyways. But Martinelli will help Saka defensively, but obviously Aubameyang's got that experience. You look at the right hand side, you see the potential of, he could play Bernardo Silva there, you could play, Mahrez there, you've got Walker there, you've got Canelo there. You could see how Saka could be a bit stressed out. Playing Aubameyang there obviously gives us a bit of pace to help out defensively, which Aubameyang does help out well. Obviously, Walker, Cancelo, whoever might think twice about going forward, because getting in, no matter, even though Walker's very fast, getting in a foot race with Aubameyang is long. Martinelli could do the same things out there, but he's young. Obviously, games like this, concentration is going to make the difference, and it's two teenagers on the left hand side. You do have to factor in potential switching off. So I would, I would play Aubameyang and Martinelli, and I would do a switching thing, like 10-20 minutes, Martinelli, you do up through the middle, you switch with Aubameyang sort of thing, people. So for me, I'll probably start Aubameyang on the left-hand side, Gabriel through the middle. On the right-hand side, Pepe could start, but you know what? I'm actually going to go with Reiss Nelson, I think Pepe's been alright in the last couple of weeks. Didn't have the best of games against West Ham, so I feel it opens up a chance for Nelson. Now, I know Nelson's potentially not 100% exactly, and fully fit and things like that, but I think he deserves a chance. And did he not? Was it United or Chelsea where he played quite well at home against? Can't remember, but I think, I'll give Nelson a chance, man. I think he might just be a little less unpredictable if you're from a City perspective, because you can imagine they've got extreme reports on Pepe now. They probably know Pepe more than he knows himself. And I'm not saying they want the same with Nelson, but I'd imagine there's slightly less due diligence on Nelson and whatnot. We also need to not switch off from dead ball situations and throw-ins, people. I thought I'd mention that. The hardest thing for me is obviously left back, because what do you go with Saka? At right back, do you bring in Suarez potentially, who's back in full training, which is too early? Same could be said for Tierney. Would like to see Tierney on the bench regardless. But to recap the lineup one more time, people, to make it easier, I said Leno, Bellerin, Mustafi, David Luiz, Saka, Ceballos and Xhaka, Mesut Ozil, Aubameyang, Martinelli and Reece Nelson make up the front three. On that note, that's my preview in relation to the City game done. Hopefully it's a positive result. But for now, people, Deluded, I'm out. Thank you for always watching and rocking.